Welcome to another teacher tip with Mr. Long, and this video is particularly for students. So if you're a teacher, then make sure that you show this to your students or share it with them. And this video is geared for those students who have an exam or a subject that they really struggle to finish the exam. They always run out of time and they don't know how to plan their time correctly. So this is my little technique that I encourage my students to use whenever they have a subject or an exam paper that they struggle to finish all the questions in. And the reason why it's so important is the best thing that you can do in order to finish an exam paper is to obviously know your work very well. But even if you do, sometimes you get that little perfectionist in you and you want to make sure that you finish the whole question, get everything right. And what ends up happening is that you spend too long on certain questions and then you don't get to move on to the others. And what a lot of people don't realize is that later questions all have a bunch of easy parts, a bunch of difficult parts. And if you spend too much time on the difficult parts on the first couple of questions, then you are going to lose time for the easy parts of the later questions. So this technique, it forces you to move on to the next question so that at least you're going to get through all the questions and get to all the easy parts of each question. Let's have a look at what we would do. So here I've got a spreadsheet just to help me with my calculations. And I'm going to take, for example, a tourism exam. Let's say I don't finish my tourism exam. And so over here, I've got the tourism guidelines. I don't know how the structure of a tourism paper is, but let's go have a look. If I go through the tourism guidelines, by the way, our previous video explains what the guidelines are. That's the scope of the exams for matrics writing their finals. So go check out that video if you want to find out about the exam guidelines, about the scope of your finals. But let's say we take this exam and they tell me, first of all, that it is a 3-hour paper of 200 marks. So I'm going to enter this data into my spreadsheet over here just so that we can use it for calculations. So the total marks is 200. And the duration of the exam is 3 hours. Now, for this calculation, I need to work out the actual duration in minutes. So if you remember, there are 60 minutes in an hour. So for those of you who struggle with maths, we can say 60 times by 3 is equal to 180. So we know that this exam is going to be 180 minutes, which I'm going to put there. That's an important value. I need to know the duration of the exam in minutes, and I need to know how many marks there are for this exam. So now I need to work out the time ratio for this exam. And the way you do this is you take the exam in minutes, which is the 180, and you divide it by how many marks there are in total. So we've got 180. I'll just type it in just to be sure. We've got 180, the exam in minutes, and we're going to divide it by the total marks. So we're going to divide that by 200. We get a time ratio of 0.9, which I'm going to put over here just so that I can remember what it is. Okay, so that is my exam ratio, or how many minutes I must spend on each mark. And so now when I come to my guidelines, here I can see the breakdown of the different questions. So for example, I'm going to type this out over here so that we don't have to keep referring to it, but I'm looking at the section and how many marks it's going to be. So I wrote down A, B, C, D, E, and I wrote down the marks for each question. Okay, so now this is what I'm going to do. I need to work out how many minutes I'm going to spend on each of those questions. If my time ratio is 0.9, all I have to do is times this value by that value. So I'm going to take that 0.9, let's just type it out just to be sure, times it by 40. And we know that this question needs 36 minutes. So I'll type in 36 over there. And now we do 0.9 times it by 50. And we know that a 50-mark question needs 45 minutes, which is nice because I've got two 45 marks. So it's 45 and 45. And then a 30-mark question, so that's a 0.9 times about 30. That's going to take 27 minutes. So there we go. So I've already got a bit of an idea of how long I should be spending on each of those questions. And that can help guide you. Now, if you really want to be specific, what we could do is, what time does our exam start? Let's say we write in an early morning exam and we're writing at 9 o'clock. So 9 o'clock's our exam. So that means if I'm going to do these questions in order, how do I work out what time I must end each question? Because sometimes you got like, how many minutes have I spent? I don't know. You don't really have a chance to time yourself, but you will have access to the clock hopefully in your exam. And so if I know that this is 9 o'clock, then I know I must go to 9:36. For that question. That's when it must end. The problem is, how do I add 45 onto that? Now, this is my little trick that I do, and I wrote it over here. You add the minutes of the questions onto the minutes of the value of the time of the previous question. So, for example, if we look here, I'm going to take that 36 and I'm going to add how many minutes I need to do on top of that 36. I'm going to add 45. So I need 45 minutes on top of that 36. Now that's how many minutes into the exam I should do it. Now that's a big number. That's above 60. So the moment this number goes above 60, then all I do is I know I'm going to minus 60 from it. And I up the hour. Because I minus 60, this becomes 10, and the minutes will now become 21. So the time will be 10:21. So let's try that again. Let's try that again with the next one. So another 45-minute question. So we know that the previous question ends on 21. So we've got the 21 there. I'm going to add the 45. And I get a value of 66. That's above 60. So that means my hours is going to go up to 11, but we're going to minus 60 because there's no 66 minutes. There's 6 minutes. So this question is going to be 11:06. The next question is 27 minutes. So I'm going to go, okay, I'll take 6 plus 27. That's not above 60, so I can leave the hours the same. So that's going to be 11:33. And the last question should technically always be when the exam ends. And this is a 3-hour paper. So the last question, if I add 27 onto that, you're going to get 12 o'clock. So that's my time schedule. So now I actually have an idea. If I write this down at the end of each question, I can actually say this is when I must end this question. So if possible, try get your exam guidelines beforehand and then try work out a time schedule and just memorize those numbers. If not, then you can do this quick calculation. I know it seems quite complicated, but if you know what you're doing, you can do it quite quickly and work out how long you should take for each question. And now you know when you're doing section A, when it gets to 9:35, you must wrap it up, because you're going to move on to the next question. If you're close to finishing, then obviously finish it. But if you are still a bit to do, rather move on to section B, because they're easy passing question B. And this way you can lay out your paper. For majority of exams and tests, you can probably get this information in advance. You can ask your teacher if it's a national paper, get the details and get an idea. Now, sometimes these are estimate marks. So if you have this, you can then, let's say in the exam, the actual exam, this is going to be 45. Then you just up your time a little bit. And if this one's a 45 mark question, then you just drop that down a little bit and you can get a little bit of estimate. If you're a minute or two short, it's not going to be a major deal. But at least you've got an idea of how long you should be spending on each question with your minutes per question, but also when you should move off of that question. So to recap, you type in the marks for the exam and how many hours it is. Now just convert the hours to minutes. Once you've got those two values, you take the minutes divided by the marks and you get your time ratio. Once you've got your time ratio, you take whatever the marks are for each question and you multiply that by your time ratio. So 40 times about 0.9, 36. 50 times about 0.9, 45. 30 times about 0.9, 27. Now that you've got your minutes per mark, at least that at the very least will help you. But if you want to make sure that you're moving on to the question at the right time, then take what time your exam starts. Obviously, you add the 36 minutes for the first one. So you know that the first question must end at 9:36. Then when you add 45 minutes onto that, all you are doing is you're taking the minutes of the previous time, which is 36. You add how many minutes you need to spend on this question, 45 equals. Now that's the minutes for the next time slot. If that number is above 60, then you're going to increase the hours by 1. So it goes from 9 to 10, and we're going to minus 60 from that 81, and we'll get the minutes that will be left over with the 10. Try it again. So 21 plus the 45 for that question, we get 66, which is above 60. So we increase the 10 to an 11 and we minus 60 from that and we get 6, which will be the minutes for that part. So that's what you do. If it's not above 60, then you leave it as is, but that's what you can do. So what I've done over here is I've got a spreadsheet, which I've already done the calculations for you. So if you want to, you can download this document at tinyurl.com/Mr. Long time schedule, tinyurl.com/Mr. Long time schedule. So when you go to that link, it looks something like this. Make sure that you don't try to edit this one, because then you're editing it for everyone. Rather get your own copy. You come here to file and you can come here to download and you can download your own spreadsheet version. And then it will download a copy where you can then go and edit it yourself with your own values. So download it, and all you have to do is you can fill in your details. Like let's say for IT, there's a 150 mark paper, that's 3 hours. And so by typing in the 3, look here, it automatically works out your minutes. It automatically works out your time schedule. And what I've done here is if I know my first question is going to be 40 marks, it does the calculations for you. And the next one's going to be 40 as well. The next one's 40 and the last one's 30. That's for the IT prac. And by just typing in your values, I've done calculations that will automatically work out these values, the number of minutes you need for each question and what time you should do the exam paper. That's if you type in the value of there. Let's say this was an afternoon exam at 1400 hours. So you put in 1400 hours. Now we've got the times for the afternoon exam. So I've got this for you so that it can automatically work out your values. You can use this like your time schedule calculator. If you're a CAT or IT student, I've actually gone and looked at the exam guidelines. If you come here to CAT, I've already filled in the values for CAT. You can edit them if things change, but I've given you a time schedule for paper 1 and a time schedule for paper 2, so you can see how long you should be writing those questions. If you know your exam is not in the afternoon and it's in the morning, you can obviously change the time, but I've already done this for you. If you're an IEB student, then obviously change the times, change these values, and then it'll get it for you. If you're an IT student, then I've done exactly the same thing. I've worked out what the values are for each of the 2 papers. So use this to help you. Just take note, you must only change the values, in this case, in the yellow blocks. With the CAT one, only change the values in the blue blocks. With the general one, only change the values in the gray blocks. The red ones will be the calculations for you. Okay, so go try that out. I know it seems quite technical, but if you practice it and if you get the values in advance, you can probably work out your time ratio. You can work out how many minutes you need to do for each question, and then you can work out when you must stop that question and move on to the next one. If you follow these, it'll help you to finish your paper and to get more marks because you are doing the easy parts of the questions you're not getting enough time for. So I hope that helps. Make sure to share this with other people so that they can use it as well. And I hope it helps you with your exams. Good luck with those. For more teacher tips, make sure that you go to our YouTube channel and Mr. Long Teacher Tips. We've got some resources there for help all students and especially teachers. We also have other channels on Instagram and TikTok, so make sure you follow us there as well. And remember, don't do it the long way, but the Mr. Long way.